welcome to the special open meeting of Osoyoos Town Council, Tuesday, November the 18th, 2025 at 9 a.m. in council chambers. I will first of all ask that for the approval of the agenda, please. Councillor King, Councillor Poderica, all in favor. Thank you. And the adoption of some minutes, the special open minutes from November the 14th. We have a motion to accept those. Thank you. Councillor Chong, Councillor Bennett, all in favor. Thank you. And I will now read the statement of the chair. Good morning. Today's open council meeting is being held in council chambers, of course, and is available also to watch on the town YouTube channel. We will look at 4 staff reports concerning domestic water, agriculture water, sewer, and waste management budgets. We will look at the regulations and rates amendment bylaw for Osoyoos Water, bylaw number 1388.04, 2025, Water District Amendment bylaw number 1357.11, 2025, and the Sewer Regulations and Rates Amendment bylaw number 1389.03, 2025. The Waste Management Services and Regulations Amendment bylaw number 1374.05 will also be presented and read a first time. A special open meeting for public input on these budgets was held on Friday, November the 14th at the Sonora Center. This was an opportunity for the public to register and speak to the utilities budget. There were questions asked and concerns noted, and feedback forms were provided. Some forms were completed then, and some forms have been sent to the town and are included in today's agenda. Administration will respond at this meeting and will provide further information on the questions asked. Some of the budget items planned for 2025 have been delayed, so they will be included in the 2026 budget. In 2025, the quarterly billing system for utilities was started. This was a time-consuming project for our staff and for residents, but we think most of the concerns have been dealt with and it will be easier to manage in 2026. There will be another special open meeting to hear public input on the operating budget and 5-year financial plan on Thursday, December the 11th. Notifications will be provided on e-news and through media releases. So, correspondence and information. Since some of them, and these have been included in the agenda, but they're new as of yesterday. Feedback received from Trevor Perry, interested in water metering invoicing rollout. Also feedback from Lynn Rankin, support of the surface water treatment facility, and feedback from Dora and Oli Sorensen, RDOS resident concerned about increases. So I will now ask administration if they would like to answer some of the questions that have been brought up on our feedback forms or at the meeting. Is that Mrs. Keith, are you going to? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I have a list of the questions, and what I'll do is I'll read the questions out and then follow up with the answer as proposed by administration. This year's utility budgets incorporated proposed modest increases to meet inflationary pressures and to take initial steps to populate much needed reserves. Our first question, balancing affordability. Explain how council weighs affordability against the needs to replace or upgrade aging systems. What tools or data help guide those choices? Council receives detailed presentations on all proposed projects and emerging issues from staff, consultants, and engaged experts in the field. Council also considers public input when weighing all potential action plans. Second question, rate increases and long-term planning. When the town plans rate increases, how far ahead are those projections made, and what assumptions go into them? Rate increases and long-term planning is based on 5, 10, and 20-year asset management plans. Administration considers the town's economic health, forecasted inflation, and growth statistics as part of the budget process. In the short term, grant programs and alternative funding are reviewed and applied for whenever possible to assist in the town's capital programs. Question number 3. Budgeting process and decision making. Please walk us through the main steps of how the utility budget is developed from staff recommendations to council approval so residents can better understand where decisions are made. Administration prepares a proposed budget which is presented to council for information. The next step in the budget process is consultation with public, where the public's questions and comments are collected and presented to council for consideration. Equipped with staff recommendations, asset management plans, technical reports from consultants, and the public's comments, council will deliberate the budget and provide direction to administration on changes as decided by council. The complete process and timelines are laid out on the town's website. Question number 4, transparency and communication. How is the town communicating the reasons behind major decisions like increases or project prioritization to ensure residents have the full context, not just numbers? Town staff and consultants provide detailed presentations to explain process and background of all new reports and emerging issues during committee and council meetings, which residents are notified by e-news, subscription, the town's website, the town hall notice board, and sometimes the local paper. All meetings are broadcast live on YouTube and available to review later from the town's website. Residents are notified of opportunities for input or information sessions on initiatives and annual process in a similar manner. Residents are free to contact council with feedback or questions for their consideration prior to decision making. Council has recently approved the development of a dedicated communications position that will focus on continuous improvement of notifying the community of council business and inviting input into the decision-making process. Our next question, collaboration and resident involvement. For residents who want to understand more about how utilities are managed, are there opportunities like open workshops or advisory committees to be part of the decision earlier in the process? Again, residents are notified of opportunities for input or information sessions on initiatives and annual process in a similar manner as described above. Residents are free to contact council with feedback or questions for their consideration prior to decision making. Lastly, staff and council collaboration. Residents are aware there are tough calls to be made. Can you share how staff and council work together? Administration is focused on forwarding and acting on the agenda of council. Qualified staff and consultants provide information to council so that council has a complete data set available to them to not only understand the issues, but to better focus and decide on a path forward for the community. Our next set of questions. Whether the town of Osoyoos completed a comprehensive investigation to determine the best source, groundwater or lake, before moving forward on the water system. Yes, a comprehensive investigation was carried out, which was also recommended by the province. Chu Engineering, Carrillo Engineering, as well as Corleos Consulting, which included engineers, consulted with staff, went through an exercise to determine the best and long-term cost-effective solution. Everything from water usage trending and conservation plans, population increase estimates were debated in a review that considered continuing with the groundwater plan versus surface, i.e. lake water. The analysis was also viewed by the province. Administration continues to work with the province so that they have a thorough understanding of our situation, and also we follow any of their recommendations to approve the opportunity of awarding a grant or grants, plural. Our next question. What percentage of the current increase will go to the treatment plant reserves? The existing reserve allocation is proposed to fund the current asset management project list, which is underfunded by approximately $800,000 as reported in the budget reports. Further requirements are needed to fund the construction of the water treatment plant. How many years of increases with residents have to pay for the plant? As indicated in the budget represented to council on November 12th, depending on grant funding and the permissible borrowing rate, the user fees are expected to increase by $27 per month over the period of the loan, likely 30 years. Our next question is focusing on water metering and invoicing. Mr. Matson.
Thank you, Ms. Keith. So right now we're just wrapping up the water meters, which we're anticipating that they will be completed in the spring, probably. There are 52 in-house meters left, 60 small pits, the residential pits, 42 intermediate pits. So those are the 2 inches or 1.5 to 2 inch meters. And then the meter vaults, which are for the larger stratas, there's 12 of those remaining. At that point, once they're all done, we can start collecting data for probably plus or minus a year. And then we'll work with the consultants to develop a new rate structure on to roll out on that. So I'm guessing probably about 1.5 plus or minus years at minimum before any sort of rollouts or mock bills or anything like that start to go out. And then once we have that in place, that would go back to finance, and they would have to look at their capacity for when we can actually switch the financial systems over.
Go ahead, Councillor Chong. Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you. It's a fairly small number, 50 in-house, around 60 small pit. With the spring completion, is that due to weather or?
I would say that's probably more due to the supply of the intermediate pits and the water meter vaults. So they just take a little bit longer to install because the water meter vaults are like 6-inch or larger services.
Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. With all the questions either one of you answering, do they just go in the minutes or do they go back to the people that actually asked the questions?
Through your worship, the plan was this verbal update was the response.
So it'll go in the minutes? Responses. How will people that aren't here, how will people that aren't here will find out their responses?
Originally, we were just planning on this verbal response to be the method of communicating the responses.
They could also go online and on the town website and review this yes, today. And I'm not sure whether is it on right now, or does it take time to get on uploaded?
Thank you, Your Worship. Currently, it is live on YouTube, and we do have a link at our budget page. It will be then within a day or two, it will be uploaded to the agenda web page so that they can go from there. So there'll be 2 options.
Thank you very much. And actually, all of the minutes from all of the meetings that we've had are available on the website. So you can go back and review things from in the past. Actually, sometimes I review things because I think, what did I say? So I need to go back and listen to myself sometimes. Director Appleby.
I would, excuse me, froggy morning. I would recommend we reply to them in the same fashion that they sent their stuff to us by handwritten mail or whatever the case may be. Just so we're doing the proper thing. Communications is a real problem in a small town like this. So, and it's only what, 10 letters or whatever has to go out.
I'm not sure. We haven't done that before in person. And so we do have a communications director. It's possible that now that there is somebody in place that they could contact, but I'm not sure what the procedure is. Did you want to ask?
Might I suggest we do what we did in the past and post an FAQ and just compile all the answers and the questions, and it can be a live document that can be updated throughout the budget process. Maybe post a link on the website so it's easily accessible.
So, Your Worship, administration can do that. We did 2 years ago, and there was probably about 80 pages of responses provided. Last year, we did not. Last year was a verbal update at this table, but we can actually do it. One of the struggles is interpreting questions. This year wasn't an issue, but in past years, there's a bit of an issue in attempting to interpret some of the verbal comments that were made at the public hearing, and some people may be of the opinion that we didn't answer their question or that was a question. So we can definitely post them online and continue with that practice that started in 2024.
Thank you. Are you making that as a motion, Councillor Chong? To
Is a
do
motion
that,
required?
upload it? I think it might be because it would be added, things that the, that
Then I
admit.
will make that motion.
Is there somebody? Okay, Councillor Potterica seconding that. Everybody in agreement with that? All in favor? Thank you very much.
And just a
Yes, go
quick
ahead.
follow-up. I know on YouTube, all our meetings are online. It can be daunting to go through hours upon hours. So on YouTube, if you go to the description, you can click the transcript and you can actually search in the transcript and it'll go right to the point of that video. So it becomes a lot easier if the public are interested in a certain topic to just go search, let's say, utility fees, and then it'll go through the transcript of whenever anyone said the words utility fee, and that cuts down on a significant amount of time. So just a suggestion for the public.
Thank you very much. So are there any other questions that and I do see that we've had an update from one of the questions that was asked the other day on what was it, on what we do with the water treatment plant. Are we going with wells or surface water? And there was somebody who asked how we came up with that. And I see that we have the same person has written back and said that they were very happy to support option 2, which is the surface water system. And so they've obviously listened and paid attention to that. So they're happy with the answer that they got. Thank you. Is there anything else before we move on?
Your
Mr.
Worship, I think there
Raikling,
was
yes.
one more question that
Yes.
wasn't responded to
Sorry,
that came
okay.
in from the Sorensens yesterday. I think there's 2 points raised within the letter versus with regards to water meters, which really isn't a budget issue. But in essence, they're questioning the installation of the meters, and just to regurgitate comments made to council and the public previously. The installation of the meters followed the practice that's done in basically not maybe all municipalities, but the vast majority. And so that's the process that we followed. The second question is, in summary, is with regards to communication. The individual actually has a property in the RDOS and also one in the town, but they're concerned with how potentially the governance works with regards to rate the domestic system, particularly, and how it's communicated to those residents within the RDOS. They're indicating that that there should probably be better communication to the RDOS residents. We did indicate that all budget proceedings and are done through e-news, and budget open houses, et cetera, are advertised in the paper and sometimes even on the radio. They were requesting potentially that there's a system set up for RDOS customers so they don't have to go onto e-news and receive several emails that are maybe not pertaining to those residents specifically. Just in a nutshell, and they're also considering or debating I guess, again, the whole governance of the domestic water in the rural area. I guess in a nutshell, the history with regards to the ag system was that the irrigation system was handed to the town. It was actually split up between Oliver and Osoyoos. We're one of 2 municipalities in the entire province that has water counselors that represent the rural stakeholders within the water system. So that's how the rural customers are actually represented around this budget table. So
Thank you very much. And certainly our water counselors are available for people to talk to if they have concerns about that in Area A. All right, so my thinking is that we are ready to go on to our staff reports. And first of all, we're going to look at the domestic water utility budget. This is Keith.
I was just going to give a brief outline of what was already presented to council with regards to the domestic water utility budget and highlights. As directed by council, administration has separated the two water utilities, agriculture and domestic, into distinct systems within our financial system. While this separation is now in place, additional work is required over the next year to refine and finalize the split. Fortunately, most costs, such as utilities, such as electricity, and staff time have been tracked separately for several years, meaning that these larger expenditures are already reflected as actual in our operating costs. Water user fees are budgeted with an increase of $7.26, which is comprised of $2.64 being attributed to inflation and $4.62 attributed to the prior year recoveries. The increase in user fees is to cover a standard CPI increase plus a shortfall in billings from 2025. An additional amount of $160,000 was also included to recapture 2024 funds credited to the agriculture district. This allegation is to support the separation of the two water utilities. General operating expenses increased by CPI except for maintenance and supplies. Due to our aging infrastructure, an adjustment for these items were deemed required. The total operating expenses are proposed at $1,918.364 compared to $1,779,800 in 2025. The overall funding allocated to capital expenditures is $2,370,000 to ensure infrastructure replacement and upgrades for the coming years. We have transitioned from funding capital from operating prior year surpluses and reserves to solely reserve funding. The current outlook allows us to fund capital from reserves while preserving capital for unplanned or emergency projects. The reserve funding is allocated as follows. Water Sustainability Fund for future capital projects, $2,170,000. Capital Contingency Fund, $100,000, and PSAV 320 Fund, which is the asset retirement obligation of $100,000. And that's the summary for domestic.
Thank you very much.
Question.
Absolutely. Go ahead,
Mayor?
please.
How do you come up with 100,000 for the contingency fund? Like, why isn't it 150 or 50? Like, why is it 100?
Historically, that's the allocation that was put to that fund as well as the ARO fund. There isn't a formula based on it. It was just kind of a baseline to use for those two. And then the additional will go to sustainability.
And just to add that,
Yes.
that was one of the discussions that started occurring about 2 or 3 years ago to address the infrastructure deficit. One of the things that we didn't do this year was actually add to that number. So the past practice has been doing additional adds, which we didn't do this year, just due to the pending pressures that are out there, but it is definitely something that we're gonna have to look at in the future because there is a shortfall of approximately $800,000 in the domestic water utility for asset renewal, excluding the construction of the water plant.
Thank you. Can you dive into a little bit more detail as to the PSAV 3280 requirements? In terms of asset retirement, what does that specifically include? Because I've been hearing some confusion. If we're building a new water treatment plant, why do we have to plan on retiring it? I mean, its service life is going to be in the decades, right? So it's like, okay, well, I haven't read the whole PSAV manual because it's thick, but if you could
Yeah,
provide
the
some insight.
policy in general, what it's trying to do is have municipalities review their infrastructure, which includes everything from our buildings to our pipes to everything that exists, and identify where a rehabilitation would need to occur if we decided to terminate use of that facility. For example, asbestos is one we're focusing on right now. If any of our buildings or pipes have asbestos in it, we have to identify a liability in our financial statements to be able to cope with doing an abatement of that hazard, I guess, within the asset. So that's the basis of it is so it's thinking if we had to retire that asset, how do we retire it in a way that's not detrimental to the environment or to anyone else coming in and purchasing that asset.
So as a follow-up with this fund, if we, because the plan is to continually replace our underground infrastructure, our pipes. We have $110 million worth. So with that context, how would this fund be used with regards with that asset retirement?
This ARO is only for old assets, aged assets that have hazardous materials in them. Our reserves would then be used, and our capital asset plan would be used for asset replacement of anything we build that's new or don't have. Like, we have to have an assessment done. They don't have the hazardous materials in them. They wouldn't fall under this PSAB remediation that needs to occur. It would just be part of our regular asset replacement and or upgrades reserves.
So if it is a case where our water utility assets aren't high risk, as in don't have asbestos or have additional remediation requirements, then that fund would be possible to draw from that and then maybe transfer to reserves for additional capital projects.
If we have completed all of the rehabilitation of the other assets, yes, that would be the case.
Can I just ask, the PSAP fund, I don't think started at all in this community until maybe 2 years ago. Am I correct? Now, there's a separate place in the budget where you keep track of this so that we know how much there will be and built up over time. Is that correct?
That is correct. And it also is a separate item that's identified in our financial statements. My understanding is the standard is about 4 years old. So it's only been in the last so many years that it's been a requirement for a municipality to not only recognize the liability in our financials to ensure that we show what that cost is going to be to do the rehabilitation, and to start a reserve to support the remediation that would need to occur.
So I had another question. In your report, I know that we need a lot of money to do all of the things that we're planning to do, particularly the water treatment plant. And grant funding absolutely plays a critical role, but we do know that grant funding takes time. It also is not a guarantee for sure. So I do know that we're going to have to borrow, and in here you've got within the 5-year financial plan, the projection is to borrow 33 million. Can you explain, please, how that number, you come up with that number, and what are the limitations on the town depending on our size and our budget and what we need in terms of allowing us to borrow a certain amount of money? I mean, we can't borrow money for the entire project. How do we decide what to borrow?
Do you want me to go then? So the borrowing requirement and criteria, I guess, is provided through the Municipal Finance Authority. And we use MFA because it provides a lower rate for municipalities. Because of their strategy of pooling investments by various communities, they are then able to kind of took that money that's been reinvested and provide it back out to the participating members at a lower rate. They have restrictions on how much we can borrow, and it's a formula based on our annual revenues. So that really does, and then any existing borrowing that we have has to be offset against that. So our limit is set basically by that. So when we take our project, we look at first and foremost, we look at what grants we might get. We look at that percentage, take the difference of the cost, add on your CPI, installation, or any other increases, and you come up with a borrowing amount of that 33 million.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Go ahead.
Since we're on the topic of PSAB, and I'm hoping it's the last time we talk about it, with like PSAB 3150, which is tangible capital assets, introduced in 2006, required in 2009, you need historical cost, service life, amortization needs to be recorded annually, betterments and maintenance, etc. That seems to be missing over the past decades. So with PSAB, what are the penalties. Like if we don't have that data and it's a requirement and we haven't been doing it, like I'm just at kind of a loss as to a requirement, or it's like our bylaws. If we don't enforce our bylaws, they're just guidelines, right? So could you?
Okay, certainly. On the topic of if we don't comply with the standard, when the auditors come through, this is why we have third-party auditors that come in and do a review, they would pass an unqualified opinion, which is not good, which means they don't support the financial presentation outcome because it isn't in compliance, which we then have the opportunity to bring it into compliance. But we do have a TCA disclosure, so we do meet the requirement of the standard, but it's a standardized TCA requirement, which really means we've taken the assets we have, we've brought them in, we have amortization rates as far as years and amounts, and we do our amortization on an annual basis in the financial statements.
And maybe I'll just add a piece to this. So it's one of the things that the federal government and provincial government has been promoting for years is the whole setting up a reserve, doing asset management plans, setting up reserves, looking after the sustainability of municipal infrastructure. One of the things that has come out probably at least 10 years ago is basically the federal government was telling municipalities, if you don't get your house in order and start developing asset management plans, you may not receive future gas tax funding, which is now called the community building fund. Now, I think there's been a lot of progress made by a lot of municipalities in building up these reserves to become more sustainable, but there still is a ways to go with a lot. Some are a lot further along than ours, and some are in the same situation we're at. What I can say is that acquiring grants is getting more and more difficult if you haven't started taking action on some of these things. And so fortunately, we've done asset management plans on almost like most of our assets. We have I'll call it the transportation ones that asset management plan that's being conducted right now, should be completed by mid-year next year. And as well as the ag system is being done as we speak. So within the next few months or next year, we should have all of our asset management plans completed, which will then give us another checkbox when we apply for grants on various things. Because if you don't have those asset management plans, at least there, the chance of you succeeding in grant applications is very slim to none. I think so as municipalities are catching up on that piece of it. We don't know for sure, but I do think with the pressure from the federal governments and the BC governments that grant applications are going to even get more and more difficult as far as how you're progressing on building up reserves, that type of thing with regards to your assets. So that piece hasn't come, but absolutely, if you don't have asset management plans in place, you will not. The chance of getting funding right now is pretty much zero. And that's one of the things, even when we got our $9 million, that was done through a program that there's a few municipalities that got, I call it the gift of funding for our water treatment plant a couple of years ago, which obviously isn't enough based on new information. But all the grants that we would have applied for, we wouldn't have qualified for that $9 million. We would have never gotten it because we didn't have an asset management plan in place for the plant, as well as on top of that, the conservation plan. So all these things that council has been doing and promoting have positioned us fairly well to actually acquire future grants. And probably the most important piece is having funding there to replace the assets, puts us in a position so that our customers can still receive the services that we require. So I just wanted to add that additional piece on maybe you can get away with it from an accounting practice, but there's other pressures coming on that if you don't proceed with some of these plans, you're not going to get the grant funding, which we desperately need.
Do you have something else?
Yeah, and just to echo on our CEO statement or comments on grants, I think it is important to note that in the past 3 years, we have been successful in obtaining just a little over $19 million in grant funding. So it is paying off.
Yes, it is. Go ahead, Ms. Keith.
No.
Did you have? Oh, okay. Are there any other questions go ahead, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question, if we have a $12 million project and we're doing the budget and we put away, we need 12 million to do this project and we're depending on a grant for 12 million to get it done, but we don't know if we're gonna get maybe 8 million or 9 million or 10 million. How do you put that amount on the other side of the budget? Like you got 12 million, are you gonna get funding? Do you kind of just guess maybe we're gonna get 75%, 80%, or is it always the same?
We tend to take the formula that's provided by either the provincial or federal governments with their granting and branding, or with their granting. They often have either a 50%, 66% kind of mix, where the municipality has to come up with their 33% and the provincial government will come up with their 66. So we take the standard kind of split. We go back and look in reserves, see how our reserves look. And in some cases, we indicate that the project is grant dependent. So if we don't receive the funding, we just cannot move forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, interesting questions to think about all of this. We do have a list on page 9 of the projects that were slated for 2025 capital projects. We do know that those are going to continue on to 2026 because they haven't been completed yet. So we're working on those. And there are 2 new capital projects that are slated for 2026. Could you speak briefly about those 2, please? The other ones we know, the 2025, we already agreed and passed the motions last year that we would go forward with them. So we're not going to work on those, but could you talk about the 2 new ones? Thank you, Mr. Madsen.
I'll do my best here because they are carry forward from previous years. So if CAO Risling has more to add, I am asking for that. So the first is the East Osoyoos Reservoir. Part of that helps with our fire flow demands, given the development by ourselves and in the future OIB in the East Osoyoos side. We have a bottleneck under the bridge right now with getting continuous flow because all of our reservoirs are on the west side. So that, I believe, is a partnership between ourselves and OIB. So, and again, I believe my understanding is it's grant dependent. So if that they've also applied for. So if that grant doesn't come through, same situation, we can't proceed with that project. The second is the 89th Street water main from 78th to Kingfisher. And that's part of a comprehensive sort of replacement rehabilitation of that whole stretch from 78th all the way down to Kingfisher. That includes replacing our water main, the road cross section with the base, and then relining the sewer mains as well. And so you'll see those come up in the sewer capital budget for 89th Street, as well as when we do come back around in the general budget on the roads portion of it as well.
Thank you very much. That's a good point because when we do one thing, there's no point digging the place up 3 times. So we try and coordinate it so that we're doing it together. Appreciate that. Did you have a question?
Just to kind of continue on with Director Keith's points with grant funding and grant dependent projects, where if we aren't successful in the grant, we may have to do some mental calculus as to the service life, the needs and wants, so the priority of the project, and then revisit the grant application and see, okay, was there a weakness, and have to resubmit it. And this all goes, it's a giant organic creature, which aligns with our quarterly strategic priorities, our strategic vision. So it's a full spectrum of weighting of multiple factors. So it's not as simple as this project, we're not getting the grant, we're not doing it. No, this might be a carry forward. We'll probably have to relook at the grant. Have a chat with the province, advocate accordingly, and see how we can be more successful in the grant funding. So it is a continuous process. It's not a one and done. But there are projects where we did a study, grant wasn't successful, they get shelved. that seems to be fairly common in the past. We have been very selective with the studies we do because we don't want to waste 100 or 150 or 50 grand on a study if we're not determined to bring this project forward. So really to outline the process, it is complex, and that's why these things take time. Because also grant intakes are usually once or twice a year as well.
Absolutely, correct. Can I ask a question on the water system infrastructure plan that True has included in here? And I'm kind of confused about, and I don't know whether you can explain it or somebody can, the numbers, the years, the colors, and the letters and numbers included in it. And I can't quite make that out. Is there somebody that can explain what that means?
Certainly, Your
Mr.
Worship.
Risnick, thank you.
Yes, council may recall and the public may recall in True did a complete asset management plan of our domestic water system and our sewer system. And within that 100-year plan, which we focused more on the
20.
first 20 years, it provided an overview of like what projects need to be completed. This chart that we put in the budget documents basically illustrates the amount of funding that's required to replace assets that are part of True's analysis based on their engineering documents on the lives of assets. So this was simply to illustrate that this is how much money should be available to address infrastructure that's well past its age life. On the water system, you may recall True indicated that they presented two options for council. One was something that they would have liked to have done, which means moving faster to replace a lot of these aged assets. But then there was also the more conservative approach and putting X amount into reserves to deal with the aged infrastructure, which was really getting us to a point in 20 years we're in better shape than we are today. Also must emphasize that that when True provided this information, that there was no physical inspection of a lot of the assets. And so before we go in to replace an asset, we make sure that no, it is close, it is done. Let's move it forward. Maybe there's some projects that were scheduled in 2035 that aren't doing as well, and we have to move those up. But all in all, this plan provides, this is what you should be putting aside so that in 20 years we have enough money to replace assets so that we're in better shape in 20 years. Should also be noted that when True did this analysis, that there was no CPI included in the report, which is standard. Like you've got to pick a base. It also didn't include a lot of the smaller piping that was out there. We just stuck to the larger pipes as part of the replacement. So there'll be the odd smaller pipe that needs to be replaced. It's maybe considered almost immaterial considering the amount of infrastructure deficit. And it also didn't incorporate, obviously, the new provincial legislation that came out a year or two ago with regards to densification. And so there's going to be a need to actually update that plan to reflect potential water usage requirements. So I know True has looked at a few of the pipes, and it appears though most, if it's an 8-inch pipe today, it'll likely be upgraded to a 10-inch pipe when it's replaced to have that capacity of the intense densification requirements. And so it's intended to provide a guide and to illustrate this is the kind of funding that we need for the infrastructure that has aged. Is exactly this project can be completed in that year or that year or that year? No, it means that operations staff need to look at it and say, yeah, it is at its time, or maybe another project might come in. So again, that document serves as a guide. We know though we need the funding to replace X, Y, Z, or whatever it is based on actual more physical inspections.
I hope you're going to ask the question I was going to ask. Go ahead.
I think this chart's quite easy to see the numbers on the left. I guess the real question is, what's all the little numbers on the graph stand for?
Yeah, so
And the letters.
Yes, so this was one page out of, I can't remember how big this report was. Is this 200 or 300? 215 pages. So within that larger document, it goes into more detail as to what C15 means. So they're actually identified projects. So, C5 or whatever, P3 might be a lift station. So you have to reference the actual 213 page document to see what some of these things are. It's also important to note that this document is prepared when we were still looking at groundwater. So,
And is that document online?
yes.
So yeah, just to summarize, the letter and the number are the specific projects, and if you go to page 45 of the study, and you go to the next page and the next page and the next page, it's all charted out with approximate completion date and cost. And if I recall correctly, the darker the shading, the higher the priority. I believe. But they didn't really also in the report they didn't really say that. But just judging because like R18 is the 340 zone reservoir, which is fairly high priority as well. So it seems like the darker ones are the ones we need the most.
Thank you, and I'm glad that it is online for anybody who wishes to go into that detail because it's quite detailed in there. And it could, because this was done 2023, it could be changed slightly depending on the changes in what the government asks us to do and funds and plans. So it's a good sort of a start, but it goes to 2044. So that's a long, 20-year suggestion.
Yeah, so it's part of any financial plan. The further you can look into the future, the better information council has to make decisions on how much money should be there. And on the water side, I think it's even though the plan is 100 years, that starts to get a little bit futuristic. But it is important to know that if in 10 years you have a $20 million piece that you need, it may not be in 10 years, maybe it's 9, maybe it's 13, but it provides some information in the for council to know that, gee whiz, when we hit that year, we're gonna incur some additional debts, so maybe we start preparing now. So it's a document that provides an overview to give kind of a snapshot of roughly where things need to go. Is it an exact science? It kind of is from the perspective of it is using tables and costing manuals, but there still needs to be that frontline interface to determine, no, this project is a higher priority than that. But again, it's there can always be curveballs. But I think that's one of the other reasons why you need those reserves to deal with some of those curveballs that come up.
Thank you. So, Councillor, are there any other concerns about the domestic water utility budget? Anybody have any other questions or anything? So, what we're now looking at is is there a possibility that we might like to suggest that the Town of Vesuvius Water Regulations and Rates Amendment Bylaw number 1388.04 be read a first, second, and third time? Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you. With regards with project W22, so water main upgrades and replacement on 89th Street, I may be remembering incorrectly, but was this water main built to reverse grade? And it's that's why the asset has been needs to be replaced or something. I remember, yeah. Was it this one or was it?
If I may, the only, that would be on the sewer side if there was anything reverse graded, not on the water side. The water side, it's all under pressure. It doesn't, having it reverse graded wouldn't really impact that. It might be undersized here more than anything, or just an older pipe. Those are typically the two reasons that you replace a water main, just for increased capacity, or it's just an aging main you're starting to see signs of failure. So increased breaks or whatnot. I'm not saying that's the case here. I believe this was just undersized.
Okay, is there anything else then that needs to be asked about for this particular amendment bylaw? Would someone like to make a motion then, please? Oh, go ahead. You had another question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
We spoke about it briefly last council meeting, but there was an error from last year where we actually did not, we have a shortfall from utility fee collection. What was that number again? And we have to recoup that for this year.
Mrs. Keith?
Yes, to recover the error and the allocation from 2024, the impact to each user was $4.62 to be part of that $7.33 increase, or $7.26 increase. The 427 was attributed to the error in the recovery, and 2.99 was attributed to inflation.
Okay,
As a follow-up.
yeah,
So if $4.62 was basically we're playing catch up, and our CPI is, what was it? I forgot. Whatever the number was, then how much are we getting ahead with this increase for this year?
We're not getting ahead. We're just sustaining operations right now. And we're getting ahead in that we are in that recovery of the revenue that will go forward in reserves that were not allocated last year.
So to summarize, we lost out on a year.
Yes.
makes quite a difference to our water rates for sure.
There is that $800,000 deficit that needs to be made up very shortly. If it's not, all that happens is exactly what's happened to us in the past, is the mountain gets bigger. The pipes are going to continue to decay and they will need to be replaced. So yes, I think it's going to be a pretty hot topic over the next 2-3 years to build that reserve to address our infrastructure deficit. And again, that does not include the water treatment plant.
Thank you. It's pretty scary to think that that happened. However, it did, and now we have to deal with this before moving forward. So that's why it's part of the budget. Go ahead.
With our reserves, when we do invest them, what's usually the average annual return? What's our interest rate for borrowing?
When the reserves are invested in the GICs, we've received anywhere from 3.25% to 3.89%.
Gotcha.
Anything else, Council? Okay, would somebody like to make a motion, please? Go ahead.
I'd like to increase $2 per month. Again, we lost out on one full year, and by rough numbers, that leads to about, and of course, this is more so Director Keith's era, but by increasing it by $2 to go into reserves, and with the appropriate investment, we're seeing significant increase in dividend over 10, 15, and 20 years. And I don't think we are in a position to lose out on a year, especially when we are this time sensitive with the water treatment plant. And to use my favorite quote from our CEO, we are building a plane as it's in the air. So a lost year in reserves and sustainability is a massive hit. Not just, I mean, to our current situation, but to generations to come, because we're going to hit our debt ceiling. And as indicated in the report, for every 1 million of borrowing, it's a $220,000 borrowing cost per year, which is an impact of $4.46 to each resident. So if we can increase maybe $2 this year, we can mitigate that in the future.
So you're suggesting that the change per month per resident for average resident would, instead of being 726, would be 926. Is that what you mean by your
Yeah,
suggestion?
and specifically for that extra $2 to be going towards transfer to capital reserves, so that number will be 1474. Because this should be earmarked just to reserves.
Anybody else want to, you seconding that, or? No, sorry, you had a question.
I have a question. My concern about that would be when I take a look, there's some big users, we're talking residential here, but this is gonna affect like a ready mix and the car washes and laundromats, motels. More than $2 a month. And I don't know how much that's gonna affect them by $2. I mean, that's $2 per household, but what does that mean to the people that use a lot of water? Like I'm sure the ready mix plants and laundromats, and they use a lot higher water. How much is that gonna affect them? Is it huge?
So, dear worship, really it's proportional. So, on a residential household, if it's $2 a month, it's, an extra, hate using percentages, but another couple percent would be the same to a larger user. I mean, one of the benefits of so in some places where there's a strata, it's still all prorated. So the average person within that suite would pay the similar increase as a residential user. And certainly there are some bigger users out there, but the percentage would still be roughly the same. When you start talking about commercial users, I mean, one of the advantages within their financial positions is that they do have an expense that's written off against company assets and revenues, but will there be a transfer of that additional cost to users? Yeah, it always comes back down to the user. Businesses are smart; they've got to move those costs onto users. I think Councilor Tron's indicated we do have to make up that 800,000. We absolutely have to make it up, and maybe this strategy does start progressing in line to meet that number. Council knew like 2 years ago that we had to make that up, and did so, got close to that number. Public didn't like moving that fast, so we subsidized it with some one-time grant funding. That grant funding is now used up, so a small escalation to get to that 800,000 is probably better than is a strategy, rather than waiting 3 years and making that 800,000 maybe now $1 million, because it all compounds. So can probably add like another couple percent to their bottom line as far as on the water bill.
Thank you, Worship. First, if I want to second that motion. As we know, with asset management, taking small steps today is what sets us ahead in the future. We know in every other local government that has gone down this path before us, and we know there's plenty more that haven't begun this conversation, gone down this path. Is us moving forward today saves us greatly in the future. And so with that, I do second Councilor Chong's motion here of the increase of $2. Realizing that, we've got some big challenges ahead of us. We've inherited some big challenges, and part of that correction that we've been going down in the last 3 years is moving this asset forward in the right direction and setting ourselves up for what's to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can't support this motion going forward. We're already increasing substantially, and we're trying to catch up on a mistake, I guess, that was found in the budget. So I just like to see it where it is right now.
I'm going to speak to that first. My concern is that this is a sort of a new idea. We've already had a public meeting where we asked people to, or gave them the opportunity to comment on the budget. And if this was to pass, this would then create quite a different scenario. And I'm wondering if this was to go ahead, would we be required to hold another public meeting? Mrs. Coulson?
Your worship, the requirements under the Act for public consultation are very open to council's decision. So it would be up to council as to whether you wish to hold another public hearing.
Thank you. I just wanted to check on that. Go ahead, Councillor Chung.
Thank you. Just for some context, if we do increase it by $2 with 4,066 parcels at a 3.8% interest, we're looking in 10 years that becomes 1.16 million. In 15 years, it becomes 1.9 million. And in 20 years, it becomes 2.8. So when we're looking at a relatively modest increase, especially when we're trying to play catch up for $4.62, you're looking at significant benefit in the future. My dad always taught me the two strongest forces in nature are gravity and compound interest. So one of them you can actually take advantage of.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor King.
I guess it's a different way of looking at it. I mean, you say right now it's $726 per month. That's $87 for the year increase just on this water. I think that's a substantial number. I don't know if anybody's actually looked at their bill that come out and broken it down and look at your water. I think right now you'll find this is quite a big substantial increase as it is. So I don't support it.
Does anyone else want to comment on this? So I will then call the question on this particular change to the budget, that we increase the amount by, at everybody's $2 for put into capital reserves. And that's been moved and seconded. Are we ready? All in favor?
No.
Yes, thank you. So we will then go back, and how do we deal with the motion? It just moves forward the same way with, all right. So is there someone who is willing to make a motion on this amendment bylaw? Councillor Chong, Councillor Poderica. So that the Town of Vesuvius Water Regulations and Rates Amendment Bylaw number 1388.04 be read a first, second, and a third time. That's what we're voting on. And water councillors vote on this as well. Okay, all in favor? Against? Thank you. All right.
Okay, one question.
Yes.
Since this is a change, is this gonna have another meeting out to the public?
No.
We could
No.
choose to have one.
You can choose. So the next steps are like to get through the water budget, but there's also a financial plan that is part of the overall debate. Now that how we've done things is that overall financial plan is part of the town budget, but it also incorporates water and sewer if council so chooses at that time, but it does complicate things.
We like complications. We're noted for it. I guess then when you go through the financial plan, will people be able to speak back on the water, sewer and such thing?
Your worship, technically, yes.
Technically, yes. What does technically mean?
So
Yes or no?
yes, I mean,
That's all.
it's the financial, it's people have the opportunity to always talk to council whenever they so choose. They can send in emails and choose to talk about anything within the financial means when the budget's presented.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. So that is one of the amendment bylaws that we have agreed to first, second, and third reading. We will now move to the Water District Rates and Regulations Amendment Bylaw. Mrs. Keith.
I'll just do a short presentation on what was already presented with regards to the agriculture water system budget. For 2026, the agriculture system user fees are proposed to increase by 0.84 per month per acre for irrigation charges and a $2.66 increase for a residential unit per month. The overall increase is estimated at 68,000 in additional user fee revenues for the year. The proposed increase is comprised of the standard CPI and label agreement adjustment to operating expenses, and an additional 31,000 allocated to reserves for future agriculture water utility needs. A 10% discount to resident units on the agriculture system has been incorporated into the rates as approved by council in 2025. While the proposed budget addresses immediate operational requirements, it is likely underfunded given the age of the system and the anticipated cost of infrastructure replacement. Council may wish to consider aligning the agriculture system rate increase with those of the domestic system for 2026, which would provide additional funding directed towards reserves and long-term infrastructure renewal. The summary for agriculture.
Thank you very much. So it would be the change per month on this would be $2.66 for the average home. Is there anybody that has questions on this
I
particular?
guess I just had a
budget?
question. You
Thank you.
kind of went right to the bylaw and we didn't really hear the report. Am I mistaken?
Yeah, that was.
Well, it's a question.
Did you have something specific you wanted to ask, Councillor King?
We went to the bylaw and we started looking at staff reports to start with before we get to the bylaw. Like you did with the first one.
So I just read a little excerpt that was already presented to council when we did the budget report. We haven't talked about the.
I guess I got no
Bylaw.
problem with it because I've read all of it. I
Mm-hmm.
guess I'm relating to the public, trying to understand how we come up with this answer through your report.
Okay.
This report is part of the, of what the public has been able to read, just like we have. And it has been presented on, as part of this budget package. And it's also online, and there was a discussion about this last week on the 12th at our meeting. So I do think if there's something specific on this that you want to ask, please do so. Okay. So I have one question in this one and in some of the others, and we haven't talked about this before. A centralized fleet management model is being explored, consolidating all fleet-related funding into a single corporate reserve. Could you explain what that means, please?
Do you want me to? Okay. So we would like to set up a reserve for fleet, which is common within municipalities. And to do that, it's much easier if we had a centralized, almost like a department that dealt with all the fleet together. And then we would use a charge out model from that fleet department to the various other departments such as water, sewer, community services. So in doing that, that department that is using those fleet don't pay for vehicles that they don't use. They only pay for the vehicle they do use for the time that they use it. So it's just a more manageable way to keep the fleet also cost effective, because we can also get economies of scale, have all the maintenance, everything done within one unit, as opposed to various different directors and different units trying to maintain a small amount of fleet.
No, it certainly makes sense. It's just something that I don't think we had considered before, and so I appreciate the explanation.
Yes, Your Worship,
Yeah.
just one more piece. I mean, this
Yes.
is, this model is very standard in a lot of other municipalities, and it's actually of even greater benefit for the business units that are smaller. You know, as we purchase equipment that's utilized for various areas, to ask for one small business unit to come up with the, let's just say the vac truck, the combination truck of $700,000, that would be a tremendous hit to, let's just say, the ag users. If they use 20% in that 1 year, we're buying a $700,000 piece of equipment. That's a big hit to those taxpayers at that point. So stabilizing within the corporate fleet management plan Because there's some areas that are gonna go up, some are gonna be down. We keep that number fairly consistent as far as our investment. But it also keeps the various departments having a similar amount of payment back to this fund, regardless of what you're purchasing from the town side. So in effect, this provides more of a leveling off, especially in some of the smaller areas, as to the cost associated with the fleet. So again, it's a good way to manage your fleet. Doesn't have significant impacts, especially as we look at separating the ag and the domestic water. It will stabilize the expenses over a longer period of time.
Okay, I understand what's going on. What I don't understand is we budgeted $129,000 for capital reserves for the operating, and it shows up as $129,000 loss. Is that going to be shown in another part of the budget somewhere, or is the $5.01 a true number? Does that make sense?
Mrs. Keith, do you have anything to
No,
help?
I
him?
think I'll explain that chart a little better. It's just showing in 2025, we budgeted 129,000 to fund capital out of operating revenue. And that change, that minus 129 is showing we're not doing that going forward in 2026. So it's not a loss, it's just a change in budget. And we're replacing that with a transfer to reserve with 159,000.
Okay, Counselor Appleby? All right. This is a new system. As you can see, in 2024, it was moved and passed that the administration investigates and provides council with impacts of separating the ag water system and the domestic system. So it's quite new, and we're just in the process of looking at the asset management plan for this, and it should be completed in 2026. So it's a new way of looking at things, but it was requested by council and by our water counselors at the same time. That's why. Anything else? Did anybody have any other? Go ahead, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just like an explanation of what is known as spray water program. I think I have an idea, but I'm not sure. Is that something?
Through your worship, spray water is using the ag system. Typically what happens is before the whole system is completely fired up and people are allowed to turn on the irrigation system, sometimes the ag sector requires water to spray for pesticides, herbicides, whatever it is, and requires some water. So what that basically means is water is made available to do those more minor things. Spray water does not mean turning on the system and irrigating your fields. It means water is required for agricultural purposes. Usually, a lot of people in the agriculture industry have 500-gallon tanks on a trailer. They'll fill up that, or 1,000 gallons, and they'll put chemicals in there and spray it on their crops. So it's basically spray enough water so that you can do that piece of your business.
Go ahead, Councillor Chong.
Thank you. In the report, it was indicated that to replace a single water intake, it's estimated at 5 to 7 million. And we have 2 intakes for ag. We are using one of those intakes for the surface water treatment plant. Is there a way to combine so that when we do build the intake and for the water treatment plant, we can piggyback on that to mitigate the costs for future upgrades for agriculture distribution for that intake?
Thank you. So that is the plan right now, is right now, as you said, we've got, 3 intakes. One is by Legion Beach there, but to consolidate all of our intakes into one location currently located at Irrigation Station 8, and then pump the water that we need for the town and the irrigation system all from one place, and it'll just have some takeoffs from there. And the overall cost for that we've currently estimated is about 15 to 17 million for the whole new building, whereas each one is going to add up to about over 20. So we're finding those efficiencies there.
Go ahead, Councillor Appleby.
Thank you. When we talked about this earlier, you said you had to contact the water, provincial water authority, whatever it is, to extend our water licensing agreement. Has that happened?
I can answer that as well. So yeah, our current water license for the town and the irrigation system allows us to draw water from the lake for the ag system between April 1st and September 30th. Doesn't go to October 15th, which has been the practice. So we're looking into that, and if it requires applying for an amendment to the province, then that may be something we have to look at. Contrary to that, just for clarity, is that the town of Oliver's conditional water license does go until the end of October. And again, ours stops at the end of September. We don't know why at this point. We're looking into it.
Okay, I just, since we started talking about this, I just thought that our climate is changing and it's been drier in the spring. So the water may have to come on earlier than it has in the past years. I'm just saying. Anyways, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Marrera.
From spring to well, excuse me, the way we're doing it now, our time now is fine. The early spring, you don't need water that much. Like now, a lot of growers have a tendency to overwater, and they don't need it. That's my opinion. I've been doing this for a long time.
We did apply to, when we were at UBCM, to have the water license reviewed. Have we heard back from the province yet? I know that there was a concern because a lot of the provincial employees were on strike. Is that just hasn't come forward yet? Is that what you haven't heard anything then, Mr. Madsen?
No, we
No.
haven't heard anything yet.
Okay, thanks. But we did do that. And it didn't look like there was going to be a problem once they got up to full management, I think.
To clarify though, when we did speak with Waterland Resource Stewardship, was that specifically for the intake depth for the water treatment plant, or was that also extension of the water license as well?
Dear Richmond, no, it was just the diversion piece of it. So with regards to taking water from the lake going down the 60 or 80 feet. So that was the specific amendment request.
So we would need additional advocacy to push for an extension to end of October.
That's correct.
Can I just ask if at some point we are going to consolidate this and put it into one intake from the lake? Does that mean that it would likely go at where Pump House 8 is right now, and 9 would be then shut down? Is that what that means? I wasn't sure.
Long term, that would be the plan, yeah. And I think we'd leave a couple wells as the current plan as sort of backup in an emergency. But the goal, and it would optimize our operations too, and hopefully reduce some costs when we only have one station to look after and not however many wells plus the intakes to look after every day.
And is there a capacity at well 8 or the number 8 rather than number 9? If we shut down number 9, we're not going to be overdoing it on 8.
So that was the license amendment, would be to increase the size of Station 8, which would mean probably the whole rebuild of that station. The amendment was to go deeper into the lake, and then the station itself would have to be larger with larger pumps to draw the water out at the rate we needed for the town.
And is there room to expand on that location?
Not a lot, but yes.
Might have to buy some land from Councillor Marrera. Thank you. Go ahead.
This might be a bit out of the scope of budget deliberations. But with just one intake, what are the considerations for redundancy? Because we've always kind of operated with the N-1 rule. If we have one solitary intake, if it fails, what do we do?
First, that's why we'd keep a couple of wells for domestic purposes. They wouldn't be able to keep supply for fire flow while we're trying to get the one intake back up and running. Generally speaking, the intake will draw the water in. You've got multiple pumps in there, but if there's I suppose, a catastrophic failure, that would be different. It's common in municipalities to have one intake like that, and all feed it up to the water treatment plant when it's there. So.
I feel like I'm talking a lot. With kind of looping back to conglomerating all the intakes into one piece of infrastructure, in terms of funding, is this another case where domestic water is subsidizing agriculture, or does this allow us another avenue for agriculture-based grant funding to then tack on? I'm just trying to figure out how the dollars and cents work, because they are two different systems, and if we kind of combine the infrastructure and we're trying to separate the systems on a budgetary perspective, will that be reflective on the respective budgets?
So through your worship, I think there's a lot of more work that needs to be done with regards to separating the two systems. I think once we get further into the process on exactly the intake, yeah, there's an opportunity to potentially, divvy out that cost. We also have to look at the existing intake to see approximately how much of a life is left to not overcharge, let's say the ag system for replacing the intake that's there. So, a quick answer to your question: there's a lot more analysis that needs to be done between the two systems to make them more pure. We did at UBCM approached various ministries on potential of grant availability on the ag system, and it's been very disappointing from the ag side. There's been very limited grants coming available on the ag side, and hopefully with continued um, pressure from municipalities such as the town of Vesuvius, maybe that will provide an opportunity to get grant funding on that side to assist. But I think overall, yeah, this whole combination of the intake needs further look to ensure that the distribution between the two systems is fair. But that has not been done, but needs to be considered as we go forward. And the real positive thing on the ag side here is that there are 3 intakes, and they are all very aged, and so this is a real opportunity, I think, for both systems, all users of domestic and ag water, to actually save millions of dollars by combining the intakes that are currently there. So it's I think, a good news story, but as far as the details, that's going to take some time.
Presumably because we have to come up with an asset management plan first for it and then have a look at this. And so, I mean, it's nice to be able to see that we have some plans down the road, which might be able to dovetail into what we're doing now. So, thank you very much. Did you have another? Go ahead.
Yeah, just not so much a question, more a comment. With districts 8 and 9, there's 670 hectares of ag land that draws water from the system. We haven't really done a comprehensive asset management plan of the ag system, right?
It's being
Or
built.
have we? What's that?
It's being built.
Yes. But I do have significant concerns of how that basically 6 zeros are going to be divided by 670, and it's going to be a challenge.
Yes, it is. Okay, are there any other questions or concerns? Water counselors, you're okay with this? Okay. Then what we need to, the suggestion is that we have the Water District Rates and Regulations Amendment Bylaw, number 1357.11, be read a first, second, and third time. Is there someone who would like? Thank you. Councillor King is moving that. Councillor Appleby is seconding that. one more question. Go ahead.
Thank you. I don't see a number for what the reserves are for the agricultural system. What are the reserves currently for the ag system?
Yeah, we had a small amount that was, has been funded in the past, which is why we've kind of put that line item in there for 2026. For prior years, I don't have the number with me, with this report, but I know it was minimal, just a sustainability amount.
So ballpark,
Ballpark,
how many zeros?
160,000 was limited,
All right.
less than 200.
Okay. Are we okay with that? Any other questions? No, could we, we've had it moved and seconded that we give this, amendment bylaw for second and third reading. I will call the question. All in favor? Against? Okay, thank you very much. The next item that we have is the sewer budget. So I'll turn it back over to Mrs. Keith. Thank you.
As with water, with sewer, I'll just do the same thing, just go over the overview quickly on the report that was previously presented on November 12th. Sewer user fees are budgeted with an increase of $2.75 per month for the average family home. In 2026, the increase represents a $200,000 increase in revenues through the town's sewer budget. General operating expenses increased by CPI except for maintenance and supplies. The budget line was underfunded in past years, requiring a substantial increase to maintain service levels. The operating expenses are proposed at $2,520,000 compared to $2,320,000 in 2025. The overall funding allocated to capital expenditures is remaining the same at $2,100 to ensure infrastructure replacement and upgrades for the coming years. We have transitioned from funding capital from current year's operating revenues, prior year surpluses, and reserves to solely funding from reserves. The current outlook allows us to fund capital from reserves while preserving capital for unplanned and emergency projects. The reserve funding is allocated as follows. We have a sewer sustainability fund for future capital projects, 1.8 million. Capital contingency fund, 100,000. PSAB 3280 fund, which is the asset retirement obligation of 100,000, and fleet for 30,000.
I just had a question. I just noticed that on the reserve funding that you've got for the sewer, you've included the fleet at 30,000, but you didn't on the water. Was there a reason for that?
This was put forth by council on prior year, and that 30,000 was approved to be funded. So I've left it in there. It's an insignificant amount, and
Okay.
we can look at moving that over to the fleet reserve once we kind of continue.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. When we look at page 404 of the report, there's a list of capital projects. I would like to make a motion to bring the force main odor reduction in 2029 capital request and bring it forward to 2026 and add it to the backup pumps and Ponderosa, the two capital projects we have listed for 2026. Do we have the capacity to perform this project, both financially and I guess resource-wise?
Resource-wise, depending on the suppliers and whatnot, and availability of the equipment we are going to need to buy for that, then we should be able to. Installation-wise, I'd have to look at our probably our contractors, see who, if they, what their capacity is looking like next year. But realistically, yeah, we can make this work from a resource standpoint.
Thank you. Could you also give a brief overview as to why odor is an issue and why the force main would be a key component to odor mitigation?
Sure. Essentially, where we're at right now with the lagoons is there has been some repairs that we need to make to the aerators. And that work is currently underway. They did some work this fall and they're going to pick it up again in the spring to fix the aerators and do that. And that's just blowing oxygen into the lagoons, which helps the growth of good bacteria, which keeps the odor down. On the smell, as I understand it and talking with our consultants, historically is that a lot of it's coming from the force mains where the lift stations on the force mains where the sewage is effectively going dead anaerobic in the lift stations. In the past, we've added a chemical to the lift stations to kind of keep it alive. And from what I gather, it has worked in the past. I don't know why, with the changeover of operators and the loss of operators we've had in recent years, why that practice stopped. So we're looking into that. That's something I've already talked to our staff at Public Works to get that going again. This particular project is to make that process more automated, so we don't need to spend staff resources going out, measuring, dosing it again, et cetera, to make sure that it just sort of measures the H2S, puts the additives into the lift stations, and then it works its way through the force mains.
Thank you. So essentially it boils down to a chemistry issue. Do we have mechanisms to gather data? Because it would be a challenge to try an initiative out, but then we can't really measure how successful we are, aside from smell, which is, well, it's qualitative.
Yeah.
And do we have like historical data on what has worked, what hasn't worked? I mean, do we even have the sensors to measure some of this, of these compounds?
My understanding is that in years past, sensors were installed, but they probably need to be replaced right now just from corrosion and whatnot. So that's something that we'd have to look at as well. As far as the data historically, especially in the last 5 years with it on and off, it would be difficult to actually have a consistent set of data, but we can definitely look into things and see how that was and maybe reflecting, I wasn't here, but reflecting on which years it hasn't been bad, which years it has been bad, and then looking at the practices that we did at the operational services side of things.
You are making the motion to,
Yeah, the motion to move the force main odor reduction project in 2029 to this year to 2026.
all right. That's been seconded. Is there anyone else that has go ahead? Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Director Masson. Is there any regulatory process or changes that need to be made prior to us implementing that?
From a regulatory standpoint, no. Our permit at the lagoons tells us what works we can have installed at the lagoon site, but not at the lift stations. So by making modifications at lift stations, that's typically something we can do in-house.
Perfect, thank you.
So the lift station down at Legion Beach that was put in a couple of years ago, that was a big issue, a big plan for Osoyoos. It was a lot of money. We got some grants for that. It was put in. Thank heavens, because the old one that was down there was very, very old and could have just literally spilled everything into the lake with one false move. So it was definitely something that needed to be done. Has that caused more or less concerns since we've had that put in with the odor? And I'm not sure whether it would or not, but would that be part of what you would be looking at to see since that was put in? And I don't know when it was, 2022 maybe. It's not that old. Is that possible that would be looked at to see whether that had anything to do with it?
We can definitely look at it. I don't see that to be the case other than that's just where all the flows are coming in from everywhere. So we can definitely look at and have sensors there and see if that's dropping over time or the H2S is dropping there over time as it's coming into the lift station. If we're looking at all the other ones, it would stand to reason that we should probably look at that one as well.
Sure, I believe that's the lowest point in the town of Vesuvius, which was why it was put in there to begin with. I don't know how many years ago, but thank heavens it was changed. Councillor King?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess we're just looking here at moving that order reduction up to 226. Do you feel we had the capacity with the staff to do all this when we got 6 things from last year we haven't even worked on or hardly worked on?
Yeah, I've looked at the scope of this project. It is relatively simple. Compared to other projects that take a lot more time where you have to redesign a street or whatnot. This is really just looking at each station, purchasing some equipment and the chemicals and sort of optimizing the process. That's the intention of the scope, the way it's defined in our infrastructure plan. So in short, and because it's automated, it wouldn't take a lot of our operators' time to do.
You're doing that at the intakes, but it sounds like a lot of the smell comes from the ponds. So how does that impact?
So what the reason why the smell's coming at the ponds is because the sewage is effectively going dead in the force mains. And then when it comes out up there, it smells at the ponds and then comes back down. But while it's contained within the system, it doesn't really emit any odor at that point in time. We do have some odor control in main lift station in with filters there. The other reason at the ponds that's causing some of the issues is that we've had some failure of some equipment that, like I said, we're currently working on and fixing right now. So
Thank you. I guess we were under the impression with that new pump station at 89th there in Kingfisher, we'd do away with a lot of the issues, but we seem to still have them. So is there any gauges in that pump station that you look at?
I'm not familiar with any gauges in there right now, but I can look into it.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. I think it's been moved and seconded. Am I correct? Mrs. Coulson, okay, that we move the force main odor reduction from which is the funding was from reserves, it says, up to one of the projects for 2026. All right, so let's vote on, yes.
I guess by moving that up, would we have enough money in reserves to actually get it done and along with the other projects?
As we've planned out the projects, yes, we do, but it will reduce the reserves below a certain level.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. I'm going to call ask for the vote on this. All in favor? Thank you. That was carried unanimously. All right, now, is there anything else that we need to deal with on the sewer operating budget? As the sewer capital projects from 2025 are just a carryover, they were already voted on before. So what we're looking at is the backup pumps for the lift stations. And I believe that Mr. Madsen, you have, I'm not sure how many pumps it would require, but you have suggested $250,000. How many pumps would that give you for that amount?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. We put a sort of a contingency in there to get the program going and start building out our inventory. I would guess somewhere around 10 to 12 pumps.
Great, thank you.
Depending on the size.
Thank you. So you require different sizes for different places around town. So, okay, fair enough. Is there anything else that anybody has to, would like, go ahead.
Yeah. So I would just like a little bit of insight. In the 2023 ASUA Sanitary System Infrastructure Plan, Cell 1 MBBR conversion was slotted for 2026. But that has been now pushed towards 2030. And with the MBBR conversion, that could also result in odor mitigation as well. So why was it pushed 4 years?
Thank you for the question. So in essence, when we started looking at the lagoon upgrade preliminary design and planning project this year, we found that we had a liquid waste management plan from the 80s or 90s that apparently nobody knew that we had. And the process to update said plan requires community engagement or stakeholder engagement rather. And that process itself takes about a year to a year and a half. So that would essentially push us out to 2027 before we could even start thinking about anything, because you can't do anything at the lagoons until you have an approved plan to make upgrades. So to convert it to the MBBR, cell 1 to an MBBR, we'd need that plan in place that supports it, approved by the province, et cetera. So there's a whole long process in there. It's much easier when you don't have a liquid waste management plan, but once you do, you're kind of stuck with it. So that's that part. And that brings us to about, like I said, 2028, at which point, if all plan or if everything goes according to plan, we'll be thick into the water treatment plant design, possibly starting construction. So the reason why we put it to 2030 was that so we weren't doubling up on a major project on sewer and water at the same time, which would take away from our capacity in-house to deliver, but also so that we can manage if anything goes sideways on either one of those projects effectively. And just to add, going back to in the short term with the odor, doing the things we can do operationally will help optimize things.
So to summarize, because we found this plan, we can't make any changes to our wastewater treatment plant because without provincial approval, period.
We can't change the processes already in place. We can replace the existing things like for like. So we could change cell 1 to another, to like we could replace it and put in a new cell 1, but we couldn't change the treatment processes up there without an approved plan.
Are you sure you found this plan, or was it just a draft, or just
No.
mysteriously disappears? Thank you.
I think we inquired with the province and they brought it up. So
Oh, great.
Well, it's certainly something new to all of us, it sounds like. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just looking at this SCADA system upgrade. And I'm wondering about that whole program. We spent a lot of money putting in, it seems every year there's another 200 or $300,000. Yet we're talking about all these systems about the data. And I thought, basically when we did the SCADA, maybe I'm wrong, I thought that took all that data and made it so it would come out in a book like this, easy to read, and you'd have up-to-date information. But it sounds like every couple of years, they just come back and here's another $300,000 upgrade, another 200,000.
Mhm.
Are we really actually using it, or is the system worth it?
So yes, it is worth it, and it does especially help for alarm calls. My understanding in looking at the plan a few months back is that it was about a $2 or $3 million plan overall to upgrade everything. What this project in particular is for 2025 and actually 2024, sorry, 2020 carry forward from 2025, is to get all those lift stations and everything else that we don't currently have on the SCADA system connected and communicating in with it, and sort of upgrading the controllers and the screens at the stations to and whatnot to communicate with the rest of the system. So the first step in that would be to build sort of the server where it all goes into, and then you have to upgrade each station. And again, we have 21 stations, so there's lift stations, so it's considerable on that front, plus another 9, 10 water stations out there, plus reservoirs, et cetera, and a lagoon. So you have a lot of those vertical assets out there that does make this particularly costly for the town to bring it all online. The alternative would be increased operating, like operators going out and inspecting and over the long haul. So ideally, this would, by having those alarms at the stations, that will give us an early indicator when something's going wrong and we can respond before anything goes down. It'll also help us in measuring the H2S at the lift stations and flows, so we have better data, et cetera. So right now we don't really have all that. It's some of them. We do it at some of the lift stations. We don't have it at all of them.
Okay, thank you. I see the next 3 or 4 years is no more for a while, so.
I'm hoping we can wrap up the
Thank you.
basics of it.
So you're quite right that we have talked about SCADA upgrades every year. I can, for the last 10 years, I'm sure we've done that. So it's just an ongoing upgrade that is needed each year, basically. Is that correct? On different
Yeah.
sections?
I think we're still in sort of the implementation phase, if I had to be completely honest. Once it's there, it should just kind of roll into a nominal operating amount.
Okay.
But this is specific to upgrade our stations so that it can communicate and measure the things.
Well, we've always agreed to them before. We've always said yes to those things because we knew they were necessary, for sure. Councillor Chong.
With regards to SCADA, it's important to note as Tyler said, the total scope of the SCADA project is extensive. So if I recall correctly, we decided to phase it into more digestible chunks of the 300 and 400-ish amounts. So it's not so much that it's an additional cost. This was kind of always the plan, to phase it accordingly so that it's not as much of an impact on our budget. And then once it's rolling, then we can just maintain it operationally, which should be minimal. And the biggest advantage with SCADA is just the sheer reduction in staff costing, because instead of having to manually go out and record the data, just press a button on a tablet, which is fantastic. Is there, with the 21 lift stations, is that due to the natural geography of being around a lake, or are there ways to consolidate it? So instead of, if we're looking at backup pumps, maybe we oversize a pump so that we can maybe reduce the number of lift stations, which then reduce additional maintenance, potentially reduce SCADA because now we don't need another set of sensors. Is that a possibility?
No, it is the geography primarily. The only way to get around that would just be your gravity mains going deeper and deeper into the ground, and of course below the water table. So that would become impractical quite quickly.
So as I recall, a couple of years ago, we purchased computers that allowed operators to take the computer with them when they went out to check on SCADA things and on so on. Are those still being used, or do those computers need to be upgraded? Or is that being done on a yearly basis, a couple of them, or how does that work? Do you know?
The tablets that we bought, they are being used by each of the operators, and they can monitor the systems from there or from home as needed. I believe right now, depending when they were first bought, there's a couple of them that are needing to be replaced. So, but we're only talking about 1 or 2 a year. So, but yes, they are being used.
So you're including that in your request on the budget from, or has that been put in, or is it included in here?
It's included in the operating because it's kind of just in that replacement phase.
Thank you. Is there anything else, council, that you would like to talk about with this? So is there someone willing? That would be first, second, and third reading is for 1389.03 rates amendment bylaw. Is there a seconder? Councillor Chung. All in favor? Thank you very much. And now we will go on to the waste management operating budget. Thank you, Mrs. Keith.
Okay. The garbage and recycling unit fees are proposed to increase by $2.77 per month for the average home. In 2026, the increase represents a $60,000 increase to its revenues. A marginal increase to landfill revenue was also applied at an inflationary rate. General operating expenses increased by CPI, except for contract services, as they reflect third-party contracts. The refuse collection renews in July of 2026, with increased rates expected associated with curbside pickup. The increase includes $10,000 for cart repair, maintenance, and new users. The total operating expenses are proposed at $1.2 million compared to $1.14 in 2025. Administration has allocated funds to the cart reserve for cart amortization in the amount of $35,000. An allocation to reserves was increased to $100,000 from $56,000 for the landfill closure reserve fund. That's all I have on management.
Thank you very much. Do we have an update on the distribution of the carts? Mr. Madsen?
I believe on the 12th I had mentioned it, but they are currently going to start arriving in town the first week of December, and then delivery out to the homes on starting, I believe, December 8th, possibly some on December 5th, which is a Friday.
So basically it would be before Christmas that everybody would,
Correct.
well, then they can fill up their carts more. It'll be easier, won't it? All right, well, I mean, that's certainly something that that we can look forward to. And then we know that the waste collections contract is up in July of 2026. Is there a possibility, if we get all of this done, that we could look at enacting the contract before then?
As far as using the carts,
Mhm.
yeah, I've already spoken to Waste Connections, and once the carts are rolled out, then they'll bring in their automated truck for that, and they'll start doing that in town as well. Basically starting December.
Good, thank you. Does that right now, or it used to, the Area A contract, which started in July of 2025, there were carts or trucks that went, some went through town and then into Area A as well. Is that going to work this time, or are they absolutely two separate types of trucks that cannot cross boundaries? I wasn't sure.
They should be the same type of truck, but how Waste Connections dispatches their vehicles, we don't get into.
We'll have to wait and see about that one. Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any other concerns? Councillor King?
Yeah, thank you. I guess because chances are there'll be an increase when you negotiate the new contract. So I guess that'll be put in your financial plan we look at next week or the week after.
That is true. We've had communication with Waste Connections, and they provide us a general increase, but not specific. And then they had, with that, it was going to be 4%, plus they were adding a CPI. So we're still waiting on those figures, but we have estimated amount going forward for just that collection line item that incorporates the 4 plus a couple more percentage for CPI. So we've set it at 6%. All the other rates were already previously set when we were negotiating the cart system.
So this is really something that's out of our hands.
Correct.
Thank you. With regards to the landfill closure, all I could find was True put an RFP for the Sears landfill design and operations closure plan in 2023, but has that plan been completed or is it in progress? Because then we would know what the cost estimate would be for the closure.
So we have that project was undertaken by Dillon Consulting, and we have a draft of that's currently being reviewed right now.
So when would what's the timeline on what the final number would be, the cost associated with closing?
We could, once it's reviewed in by staff and we can bring it back to council. It's kind of a new area that I'm kind of exploring a little bit, and I don't entirely know that process, but yeah, we can definitely bring those numbers, I would guess, in the new year.
Thank you.
As I recall, this providing money for the closure of the landfill has been an ongoing budget item every year that I've been involved. So there has been money put aside for years and years. Am I correct, Councillor King, Councillor Bennett? Yeah. So we do know that it's a long-range plan. The only concern is when we are required to close this landfill, where do we go next? So that has to be something that we consider. But let me tell you, and I think I mentioned this before, that the landfill has been well maintained, well looked at for many, many years, and it has provided us with many more years of use. since I would say in the last 15 years. That has certainly been something that we've looked at, and it's extended it from, I don't know, it was 20-year to up to about 70. There have been people that I know have from around the province that have come to have a look or over the years at our landfill because it was very well planned and gave us a lot of extra years. So that's a positive. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add to the landfill closure, just so that it's clear, what we have in our financial statements is we have a liability booked for the landfill closure. Actual funds set aside for the closure is minimal. There were amounts that are held in the surplus, and we've now started to separate and bring it back into 2026 as an actual landfill item.
Thank you. Did you have something that, no? Oh, you can think the next time, or are you ready to? What we're looking for here, I believe, if there are no more questions, is that the Waste Management Services and Regulations Amendment Bylaw number 137005 be read for a first time. So there's several other readings that we can do. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, I'll make that motion. And I do have a question now that I've finished thinking. Do you see any foreseeable need for increases aside from CPI for this specific budget?
At this time, no, we have no capital projects planned to go forward, and we've completed what we had set to complete in the prior year. So I think we're in good shape from a operating point of view.
Thank you.
So it's been moved and seconded that we read this amendment bylaw for the first time. I will call a question. All in favor? Thank you very much. Now, before we terminate the meeting, I would like to ask for a motion, please, to go in camera. And I don't have the particulars. Could you read it, please, Mrs. Coulson?
Yes, Your Worship. The rationale will be under Community Charter, Article 91C, which is Labor Relations or Other Employee Relations, and 91K, which is Negotiations and Related Discussions Respecting a Proposed Provision of a Municipal Service.
Thank you very much. Could we have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor King, Councillor Poderica, all in favor. And thank you to our audience today for being present and listening to our discussion on this. And we certainly hope that many other people who are interested will watch this online and get the information that they probably are asking in their minds. So we hope that that will help with what we've presented today. If anybody still has questions, that is certainly something that can be done. You can contact the town, or you can send in a note to the town, and we will certainly look at the questions.